Oh, I can still see it. Beautiful girl. She was quite a sickly baby when she was born. And she ended up being an asthmatic child. But when she became a mum, oh, she was a beautiful mum. Absolutely beautiful mum. Always smiling. She'd always wave, "Hi, Auntie," you know. Just what happened to her is so sad. You know, it still hurts today. It'll probably hurt forever. What happened to Janet?
Hey, Papa. Hello.
You know, one day, maybe the girls are going to ask us and we haven't got an answer. What do you say to two beautiful girls when they ask you what happened to our mummy? They were a nice family. We all went to the same school together. Played together, we did things together, you know. I was quite close to some of Janet's aunties on that side. I'm still in shock that they let this happen. That they went that far to try and heal her.
It was shortly after 5 p.m. on the Friday where our police communications centre had a call requesting that police attend at an address in Wainui-Mata. My name is Tasha Penny. I was a detective sergeant in Lower Hutt, second in charge of the operation. What we could never have appreciated when we first walked through the door was that what was about to unfold was something incredibly unique, something incredibly tragic, and something very challenging. Whenever you work on any case at all, it's a privilege. You have a really big job to do, and we worked very hard to understand how a family could do that to one of their own. There were conflicting stories about how Janet had died. Although some of the family members had said she had actually died hours earlier and from a mental illness or sickness. It was a matter of trying to unravel what had happened, trying to work back. We talked to in excess of 70 people. We let them tell their story. One person saying it probably doesn't have a lot of weight. But when a whole lot of people are telling you the same story, then there's something in that.
Take a seat. What can you tell me about making a promise?
A promise is being truthful to the person that you made the promise to.
So do you promise me?
Everything we talk about in this room today will be the truth?
Yeah, if I can remember.
So what I'll get you to do is...
Just read that card out aloud, please.
I, Glenys Wright, do sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will tell the truth during this interview here today.
I, John Tahana Rawiri, sincerely and truthfully affirm that I will tell the truth in this interview here today.
This family cooperated fully with the police. My name's Phil Mitchell. I was Defence Counsel, tasked primarily with researching the case. They genuinely believed there was something very malignant and dangerous within her.
You can't just act on bizarre beliefs and kill someone and nothing's done about it. My name's Grant Burston. It was my responsibility to lead the team of Crown prosecutors who conducted the case against the people charged in relation to Janet's death.
What have you come to talk to me about today?
Things that happened last week about Janet Moses.
Should we start there?
Just from the 21st, when we were at the Palazzo Hotel.
On the Saturday night, there was a 21st function for Janet's sister at the Palazzo Hotel in Wainuiomata.
You have close families, but this was extraordinary. A close-knit family might be a family that gets together for lunch every Sunday, but these people, they lived together, they had their own family sports team, they socialised together. I can remember numerous times during the trial people saying their best friends were their cousins. They did everything together. Janet had a very difficult time in the weeks leading up to her death. There seemed to be a complete and total change in her.
Jen was just sitting, gazing at the wall. She didn't look right.
This was quite a shock to everybody around her. It seemed to have come on very quickly. My name is Dr. Reese Tapsell. I'm a consultant forensic psychiatrist and I'm also of Māori origin and have, through my life, been involved in the interface between particularly psychiatry and cultural practice. Janet had a very close and loving relationship with her grandmother. Her grandmother passed away relatively recently. And she'd also had some fairly major stressors in terms of a relationship. And I think the combination of those things are likely to have put a huge amount of pressure and stress on her.
Who is Shane?
That's Janet's partner. They've been together for around 9 years, I think.
Tell me about him that night.
Oh, my darlings.
Come on, go.
Just gonna hang out with the boys for a little bit.
Come be with the kids.
Love yous.
She learnt of an infidelity with her partner, and after that she became very withdrawn.
Did you drop Janet off somewhere?
We went over to Jan's auntie's and we ended up staying the night there.
They're coming, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming, they're Come on. Come back inside now. Come on. You're okay.
Our girl was in danger. We decided to take her down to my brother Johnny's and get the family together for a hui to discuss her, why she's not acting right.
Oh, yeah, come here.
They, I think, had regular family meetings to discuss anything that popped up, which is quite a lovely traditional way. I mean, maybe it's the way we all were generations ago. And unfortunately, the grandmother had died, and she had been a great matriarch of this family for a long time, and she would always take charge in situations like this, but she wasn't there.
At those meetings, is there someone who's in charge or does the talking? How does that work?
Oh, yeah, that's John. He's like the head of our family.
Where everyone put their ideas together to work out what the problem was with Jen.
Normally she's happy-go-lucky, yeah? We all knew something was very wrong. Something deep.
She didn't have no tears, nothing. She was just sitting there. And as hot as she was, she still wouldn't take off her jacket. People were just coming up to her, saying, "I'm sorry if I hurt you in any way," stuff like that. "We're all here for you, we all love you," and everything.
And did Janet talk at the meeting?
She was just staring at the ground and stuff.
She's just she was like last night. Yes, I think it's hey.
very difficult to be certain about what was actually happening for Janet, but all of the evidence that I saw suggested that she was becoming psychotic and that she was having extreme changes in her mood. It's very common for people to incorporate the things that others are saying and the things that others are doing into their psychotic beliefs. And that reinforces for people around that person the way in which they might have understood that behaviour. You can imagine then how it's very easy to get into a bit of a vicious cycle.
If you ask me, he's a predator.
But it's important to remember that whilst I might have a particular medical paradigm of the way in which I view and approach mental illness, not everybody shares that paradigm.
Ko Putawaki tōku maunga. Putawaki is my ancestral mountain. Ko Ngāti Awa tōku iwi. Ngāti Awa is my tribe. Ko Iramoko tōku marae. Iramoko is my marae where I live. Ko Pauroto Ngaropo tōku ingoa. And Pauroto Ngaropo is my name. I've had the privilege and honour to be a cultural advisor to the Prime Minister of New Zealand, the Right Honourable Helen Clark. We can only run so far from the spiritual world, and from a Māori point of view, we are both spirit, ira atua, and human, ira tangata. Over the last 200 years, there has been a process of colonisation where a lot of our own beliefs and values have been replaced. It's important to hold fast to traditional Māori beliefs, Māori culture, Māori customs and practices, in particular, Māori spirituality. Those that are believers, those who have a knowledge and recognition and respect for the spiritual realm, know there are things in the spiritual world which are positive, and there are also spirits that are of a negative nature.
What else was talked about at the meeting?
There was a lion statue, which had actually been stolen several weeks before from the Greytown Hotel.
Jan's sister, she had taken a tonga from Greytown, which was a lion, a white lion.
It's so heavy.
Oh, these are muscles.
My recollection is that they stole the lion because they thought it would be a meaningful symbol to have decorating the house. John had a tattoo of a lion. The lion, in fact, was one of the family symbols and a symbol of their sports group. My name is Heather Kavan. I'm a lecturer at Massey University. I research extraordinary religious experiences. I made a study of the Mόζες manslaughter trial and felt a connection with the case because I was raised in Wainuiomata. And Wainuiomata is a place, well, it's suburbia, it's surrounded by 3 hills, very cut off, but there are pockets of intense spirituality.
Kia ora, my name is Tamati Keynes. I'm from Wainuiomata, or a resident of Wainuiomata, and have been since 1981. I used to deliver the social work program back home. One particular session we had, Hohepa Kireopa took us down to the little stream in Waimana. He said, choose a little stone. He says, now name your stone around someone or something special in your life. So we all did. And then Hohepa conducted traditional karakia. I named my taonga after my kuia, who's in this photo, Te Hiri. And after karakia, he said, well, if your heart is where your decision was, and you believe in the power of karakia, then that stone is now a taonga. In the case of the lion, Janet believed that there was something wrong. That condition is in the eyes of the believer, not in our interpretation and translation of what we think it is. It is what it is.
Family members accompanied Janet to the small flat in Wainuiomata, which was actually the home of her grandfather.
We set up the bedroom for Janet to sleep in, but she didn't want to sleep in there, and she slept in Koro's bed in the lounge.
I was brought up to know about spirits and all of that. But how I was brought up, when you take something from a marae or wherever it was taken, yes, you would be hit. Something will happen to you, but it always hits the weakest. Because Janet being the sickly one out of all of them, yes, it would have hit Janet.
About midnight, Galen rang. Says we've got to get round to Dad's because Sister Ollie, or Janet's mum, she was starting to get scared. We were up all Sunday night with her.
They contacted an uncle, Jimmy Rahi, a tauhanga, a Maori priest, if you like.
The prosecution didn't question that calling in the tauhanga was entirely appropriate in Maori culture.
Tohunga is the medium between the spiritual and the physical. The access mundi. It's like consulting the pastor of a church. They would trust absolutely in the tohunga's advice given them. That advice was, it's like God's word.
Kia ora tāku whangaunga hei.
Kapai, anything to help the family. Me noi tata. E iho tituri iho koe I te rangi. Maharatia no hoki I tēnei pōnanga au, whakamāmakia tōna mate. Arai atu iaia ngā rauhanga a te hoiriri, kia mautoni hoki tōna ngākau I rungi te rangi Mārie, ko I kuraiti tō mātou ariki. Āmine.
It wasn't until Jimmy came out and that we were told that it was Mahutu.
Tell me about the curse. What do you mean when you say the curse?
It's like a Māori curse. It kind of makes you mentally sick I think it is. It's kind of hard to explain.
Makutu is not something that might be regarded as an oddity. It is simply part and parcel of a Maori understanding of life.
In traditional times, Makutu was used as a means of protection or a revenge mechanism if someone had killed or hurt your family. It's really cursing them and damaging their soul, their mind, their heart, and who they are.
It's extremely difficult for a Pākehā, New Zealand, European person to get information from Māori about Makutu. I did manage to find one piece of information, which is a PhD thesis written by Gluckman. Māori told him that they often thought that white Pākehā doctors misdiagnosed Makutu afflictions as psychiatric illnesses.
What happened next?
Blessed her with water, like a church christening, and the karakia to ward off the evil. You never talk about this sort of thing, eh?
In 1814, our ancestors were introduced to Christianity at Hornihi in the Bay of Islands. And now that's become sort of one of the ways of how our people see our own concepts. There was a whole shift away from the spiritual structure of Māori society. And now we are confronted with Makutu. How well do we understand actually what's happening? And what is it that we're doing to ensure that we have the right advice around us?
At this point, Jimmy Rahi had a revelation that would change the course of events dramatically. He said that he had a vision of 3 claws in Janet.
The lion. That lion from Greytown Stride. It's outside.
He advised the family that they had to return the stone lion to Greytown because it had a mate there that was missing it, and that it was very important that they were reunited.
Jimmy said the lions had been together for over 100 years.
And what did Jimmy do?
I think he blessed the whare. And he said the lion had to go back.
A spiritual possession is a very serious matter. It's a life and death thing, isn't it? The tohunga's role is to protect life, to look after the spiritual and protect the family.
So the following day on the Tuesday, there was a convoy. About 8 or 9 vehicles went over to the Wairarapa from Wainuiomata back to the Greytown Hotel.
From that point on, many of them didn't, in fact, even go to work for a week. They were with her all the time. They kept watch over her. They were dedicated to her welfare. Janet was there, Timi Rahi was there, Janet's namesake, her paternal grandmother was there, and we know that because there was an incident that alarmed a lot of people.
No, not you. No, you. No, you. No, you shouldn't even be here. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. No.
Calm down, you all right?
When this guy stops, I'm gonna kill you. When this guy stops, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. Come on, you stay out with this guy. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you.
And what happened over at Greytown?
We parked outside of a pub.
Mm-hmm.
And we walked around the back and the lion was taken out.
He honore, he krorea, he maungaronga ki rungi ki te whenua, he whakaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa, āmine. E tō mātou nui te rangi, ke tapu tō ingoa. Ke tae mai tō uranga tiratanga, ke me te tāu e pai ai ki rungi ki te whenua, ke rite anō ki tō te rangi. Ho mai ki a mātou ai nei, he taramo mātou mo tēnei rā. Urua mātou hara, me mātou hoki e muru nei i te hunga e rāna ki a mātou. Au hoki mātou e kawea kia whakawaia, engari whakaorangi a mātou i te kino. Nō hoki te ranga tiratanga, te kaha me te krorea. Ake, āmine.
In the spiritual domain of Māoridom, it's all about goodness and love, not about death.
It's done now, girl.
I believe within my heart, they would know within their family.
You're right, girl.
That through the power of prayer, through the power of goodness, all these curses can be lifted.
Apparently, in the hours that followed, she improved. Everyone felt like there had been quite a weight lifted and things were going to improve from that time on.
We came back to Wainui from Greytown, and I think everybody went to Koros, and then we had a feed of fish and chips.
Andy, Joe, what's that fish stuff? Get that one.
The tahunga said to them, well, you know, I've done what I can now. You've returned the lion and she looks much better. I think this is one of the tragic turning points of what happened.
Ma Jane, ki te whakatai te tuatai, ki te manaki e iaia no hoki. Ma koutu te whānau katoa ki te hāpai aia. Muri ake tēnā, ki te pai aia.
What Uncle's been saying is that Jan needs to rest and to look after herself.
Out of the 3 things that were in her, I think 2 of them were to do with the lion, and the last one was to do with her Shane.
It had to do with her partner. She was getting mental and verbal abuse from him. Uncle Jimmy said that he'd done his part, but he wouldn't do the relationship with Shane part. That was for the family to do.
Now, unfortunately, some scheduled medical treatment required the tauhanga to be hospitalised for a number of days, so that took him away from being able to be brought back in to help the family when things didn't go well.
We were a close family, and we always get together to solve our problems. And the people who've passed on are always there to guide you.
Addressing the demon that they believed was inside her, they said over and over and over again,
Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love. They're coming. The money. That's that.
She was trying to tell us something. It was like a jigsaw, trying to put the pieces together to work it out. And then when we did, it would write itself out.
Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love.
Go with peace and love.
Go with peace and love.
Lord Jesus, we have come together in your name, and it is written that whatever we ask shall be given. We ask for complete and full healing for Janet and Moses. We ask this in your name, Jesus. Thank you, Lord. We have received your blessings for this child. Amen.
Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love.
Everyone to do their waters and clear themselves first before the karakia. Jen in the middle of the circle, surrounded by everyone holding hands. Say the karakia. Jen's waters to be done.
Go with peace and love.
Drink a
Go with peace and love.
This family had a long association with water. They had rituals which they'd learnt from their grandmother, and they used to talk about, I can remember during the trial, they would talk about doing their waters to safeguard themselves.
Everyone must believe in their heart that this will happen. Not just in their heads or saying the words. It takes just one person not to believe in their heart, and it will not work.
But they all seemed to do it, and the defence generally was she consented to being involved in this process, and they, the participants, genuinely believed that what they were doing was to help her.
But this is a family that deeply respected their elders, and who's Janet to question that they're doing what they're doing in her best interests? They didn't ask or consider the question whether Janet was consenting.
She could have said, no, I don't want any part of this. From time to time she was sitting outside having a cigarette with her cousins. She could have just got up and walked away. And she didn't.
There were two Janets. There was the Janet who went outside had a smoke break, was happy to go back inside when it was time to start again. And then there was the Janet who screamed, yelled. There were two Janets, so who do you decide is the one that consented?
No, 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 no,
Go with peace and love. 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 Go with peace and love.
My name is Viv Babington, and I live right opposite the house. You can hear everything. Chanting inside and the stomping, boom, 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 boom. Over here, you know, it was deafening here. Mind you, there's so many people. There was heaps of them. That place was chocker, man. But some of them couldn't get in.
We don't want your co-martyrs and you fellas coming around this house. We got Janet. We'll look after you. No.
One of Janet's paternal relatives suggested, let's get in another tauhanga. The Rawari family didn't want to do that.
Certain ones weren't allowed at the place where Janet was. Certain ones weren't allowed in. I'm talking like ministers and all of that. I mean, why? These people could have helped.
Well, John come past. He's our kaumātua, John Whanai. He come past. They wouldn't let him in the house. It's bloody sad, because John would have got other help. I'm sure. He would have got other help.
I'm not a minister, but I normally do that to bless people who are sick. That's why I went up there. But a lot of those fellas, they weren't too sure what was happening. A lot of people want to know more about their culture. They want to know more about their culture. But they don't know the language, and they don't know the protocol, and they think they're going to do this, they're going to do that. If you don't know it, well, you do it the wrong way, well, that's what happens.
Wednesday evening, things really started to intensify within that flat.
There's mixed testimony over why Janet wanted to be in the shower. One theory is that because she frequently showered her grandmother who died, she wished to, go back and recreate that nostalgic experience for herself.
When Janet got up, she'd head to the shower. And she'd turn it on. Hot, And I'd turn it back to cold.
They were saying that was our weapon kind of thing against the demon.
Mm-hmm.
Was cold water.
Is the water cold? Is it cold? No, girl. We love you, girl. It's all good. Come on, girl. We love you, girl.
You could see the blackness rising up from her eyes, and they would just get real big.
Come on, girl. Don't fight us. Come on, I love you. I am really cold.
But who said evil spirits don't like cold water?
Mucus, mucus.
It was wiped up with using a towel, and then it was decided that the marketer was on the towel and that no one else could use the bathroom where the toilet and shower were located.
Out came the vomit, out came the demon. The purpose of the water then turned from the purification of the body to an instrument to cause vomiting, and so it escalated.
Janet! Janet!
Predator. Predator.
So Shane was around. Did Janet want to see him?
We had asked her. She couldn't make decisions for herself.
Janet! Jen! Janet!
He was part of the problem.
Janet!
That's what we've been doing as a family, to keep him away from her, to get her well again.
She don't want to see you. We're taking care of your shit.
My fault.
You don't need to be here.
It started a downward spiral, if you like. The family lacking any sort of external contact. It was so closed and insular and suffocating.
Look at her eyes. Look at her eyes.
Janet? Havana, come on. You lie down. Come on, girl.
Whoever wasn't in Nefare at that time will never understand.
Come on, girl. Come on, girl. Come on, girl. Come on. Calm down.
Go with peace and love. 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 Go with peace and love.
Just imagine the pressure, the fear, the anxiety, the panic. It comes down to your your love for that person, to stay there and to endure it.
These people were so sleep deprived. Some of them hadn't had sleep for 4, 5 days.
Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love.
They just carried on doing their thing. All of us here, we're used to the quietness of the place. Not all that noise. But what can you do? No one called the police. Pull the curtains and I've seen enough. That's it.
I said we needed to get together again as a family. Some of us hadn't seen our children for 2, 3 days. There was about a dozen of our babies. And Jan's mum, we tried to make them comfortable.
She kept wanting to go to the shower. Something was saying the evil spirits wanted hot water. She didn't like the cold water, eh?
Drink it, Spew! Come on! Spew it up! Spew it up!
We were in there with her for ages. Felt like bloody hours. Oh, it's so strong. And there's us fighting it.
And her father was there then too. I was so exhausted when I came out of there. It seemed to go on for ages. Yeah. But then suddenly she just came back. Good as gold. Like the Janet of old. Good as gold. You need to come home with me, Bob.
Several times Gerald Moses asked Janet to leave with him. He vowed that he was going to return the next morning and collect his daughter, regardless of her reluctance to leave with him.
When things calmed down, we got our baby back in the bed. And we tried to pacify her, even though we knew she wasn't right. Everyone was crying. We were so relieved that she'd calmed down. We let her get some rest. We felt that she was coming back to herself. We sat around waiting for her to wake up. Well, she'd wake up, walk around, go back to sleep. But then it changed again.
I went to sleep. And when I woke up, it was a catastrophe.
Wait, Janet, you all right? Janet,
It was at that point Janet made quite a large change. She said that she wanted to lay down her life for her family, to sacrifice herself during this imminent battle.
They're coming! They're coming! They're coming! Come on, come on! They're coming! They're coming! You listen!
She had a necklace, like a bone carving, that she got from her nan. They were saying that the demon was getting all its strength from the bone carving.
Johnny, get the scissors. Okay. Just, no, come on. Come on. You'll feel better. Come on. You'll feel better. Okay? No, you'll feel better. Come on. Come on.
Lie down. Come on. Some water. Speed, eh? Yep. Come on, Janet. Some water, eh? Come on, drink some water. Come on, come on. Just go for you. Come on, girl. It's all right. It's good for you, eh? You're going to get it out. Come on. One more.
Come on, go with peace and love. Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love.
Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love.
Give me some water.
Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love.
More water.
Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love. Go with peace and love.
The children had no access to the bathroom. In fact, nobody had any access to the bathroom.
When people needed to relieve themselves, they did so into diapers and nappies and towels and just into the clothes that they were wearing. So it became increasingly strange behaviour.
Actually Janet that was fighting them. It was the demon inside of her. And the demon, it was like pretty feisty and everything. I can remember her saying, oh, or like, and fuck this.
Go with peace and love. 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 Go with peace and love.
You know, we kept thinking it was Shane who was doing this to our niece, but no, it was that lion. It was revenge for splitting them up.
The room was intensely hot, a furnace.
Everything by the stage was drenched. Water was rising in the kitchen. I stuck a steel to put a hole in the floor.
All the eyes of our children were going strange, evil. And you could see all these things racing around in them. You've got something in your eye and it's racing around in there. How would you get it out without putting your hand in there to grab it out?
Some of the people were thinking to themselves, we should take Janet to hospital, but they weren't the leaders.
To even think about saying, stop, this might not be right, they felt they couldn't do it. Because if they did, well then perhaps they too were going to be cursed, and they might end up in Janet's position. And there's the power of the group and what's happening.
I think evil was in each and every one of us, because we were doing things we wouldn't normally do.
And then they made a rule that you weren't to look into Janet's eyes in case you too became possessed.
And was Janet talking? Did she say anything?
There was one part where Janet goes, "Auntie, stop, just let me have a breather."
And what happened?
They were doing Joshy and trying to make him, spit up all the yucky stuff in him. Then I remember they did it to Maz, did her. And then I remember they done it to me too. I don't feel like they were trying to hurt us. They would have had their reasons.
Get off me! Fuck off!
They continued on with the teenage girl for hours. She finally broke through at the same time that Janet also managed, with over half a dozen people holding her down, to break free. However, the group interpreted this as the Makatu doubling its strength by unifying the teenage girl and Janet, and so these young women who had broken free were pulled back.
She became the second lion from Greytown. And it was her and Janet working together.
These were sensible people. They worked, played sport and lived great Kiwi life. Everyone just got caught up in it.
Hysteria is a not uncommon state. Most of us, at times, have felt a bit hysterical. And world history is littered with examples where very, very extreme things are done on the basis of a set of beliefs that to many might not make any sense.
I think what's going on here is what would happen to any of us if we were stuck in a room for 5 days with no sleep, having little to eat, rhythmic chanting, 40-degree heat, stomping, intense fear. I think we would all go berserk in that situation. This is the human condition.
I know most people won't understand. A makutu is evil. You have to find a way of putting it right to get the person back to normal again. I wish I had someone who could relate this to the police, because I'm finding it very hard to do on my own.
The mechanism in dying through drowning on dry land or through immersion in water is the same. The water gets into the lungs. That causes the membrane in the lungs to froth up and produces a frothy liquid. That gets absorbed further into the lungs. That collapses some of the air sacs. That compromises the ability to circulate oxygen in the body. Vocal cords go into spasm. The heart goes into abnormal rhythm. She swallows her tongue.
At one point, her jaw locked, and instead of thinking, gosh, we've gone too far, the participants thought that her jaw had been locked by the marketu to stop them from getting even more water into it. So they prized her jaw open and she died.
So when did you realise that Janet was getting to the point where her body was passing away?
I didn't.
When did you notice she'd passed?
I still didn't. We were just trying to get the other girl right. The whole place was full of evil. I tried to do CPR. Well, I don't know how to do it. And I turned to my wife and said, I love you, darling. Because I think I was meant to go too. Yeah. Because I've been a leader for the family. And I thought they'd get me too.
Jen was on the floor with all my brothers and sisters around, trying to bring her back to life. We were trying to work out if it was in the house. All of the children. This Makatu was in the house.
As soon as they realised Janet had passed, they amped up the efforts on the teenage girl. We've lost one. Don't let us lose another.
That went on for some hours after Janet had died.
I was actually scared. I said, "You're scaring me." And then she said, "Well, you're scaring me." Yeah. They were trying to hold down my arms because I was like scratching and punching and kicking people.
And how come you tried to do that?
I think it was because of the demon inside of me. I just went pretty psycho.
Did you say anything?
Can't exactly remember, but it was going something like, "Stop, you're fucking drowning me." Something like that. Gonna die. It's just when it went all blank. It just went all blank, and I think that's when they nearly lost me. When it went all blank. I don't know. I actually don't know what the demon looks like. I don't know what they were looking for, what they were seeing and everything.
About lunchtime or late morning, one of the local marae Kamatua was telephoned and he went round to the flat.
A man who they called Pakeha Dave, who is a white European man who is a spiritual conduit and a man whose spirituality they respected. He said he felt a sense of evil and a spiritual message came through to him, seemingly from the deceased grandmother.
It's gone. You know, we just love our family so much, you know, that we would never ever do this sort of thing to our kids. Tonga says that Mum's very angry because we had the kids bottled up in there for, I don't even know how long for.
And after blessing everybody who was there, including Janet, he advised that the other member of the family should be taken to hospital.
It was a desperate plea from a 14-year-old girl. Stop it, you're drowning me, as relatives forced water down her throat during an exorcism.
Mo te kohurutanga o Janet Moses.
Nā toko rima mo te kohuruia Janet Moses I te tau 2017.
Janet Moses died during a mākutu.
Killing a young mum.
Killing Janet Moses.
During an exorcism. Exorcism ceremony.
This has been a very controversial case.
Torture and death are just not acceptable.
Does it? What a lot of humbug. This is voodoo stuff.
Hyperarousal dissociation.
A book by its cover. Witchcraft. The media jumps on it.
Family members desperate to hide the faces of the accused.
Don't fucking take photos, man. We're in enough fucking tragedy as it is, okay?
Janet was a young mother who lost her life. It is absolutely critical that we understand how this happens and inevitably hold people to account for what has happened.
What are the authorities to do when a human being is killed in those circumstances? There were 2 charges, manslaughter and 1 charge of cruelty to a child. There is no suggestion whatever that any of the people charged or Janet had been using drugs.
The odd thing about the case was deeply held spiritual Maori beliefs were being aired in such a formal, white, colonial, if you like, system.
The court bent over backwards to be sensitive, but when they described what had happened, it was like reading a scene from the Salem witch trials.
The family belief was based on misconceptions and misinformation. None of the expert witnesses had ever heard of pouring large volumes of water into the person afflicted as a way of dealing with the makatu. And as it turned out, the lion was one of a pair of concrete garden ornaments that had been purchased new by the owner of the hotel. He had smeared yogurt on the statues to try and weather them and make them look older than they were. But they certainly weren't objects of antiquity at all.
As the trial progressed, their most precious spiritual experiences were described repeatedly as fixed false beliefs. It just got to the point where I couldn't look at them. It would make me cry.
I think all of the lawyers involved, both prosecution and defence, could see the family dynamics, and we all felt for these people.
Public opinion was divided, but the jury looked sympathetic.
Well, to breaking news now, and the jury in the Janet Moses exorcism trial in Wellington has just returned with a verdict. Simon.
It's been a long wait for that jury to come back with their verdict. A lot of people at court wanting to hear that verdict. Here's what happened.
Guilty, 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 guilty. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty.
These 5 defendants found guilty of manslaughter after a 5-week trial and almost 2 days of deliberation. 3 other family members were acquitted and walked free from court. The 2 family leaders, John Rawiri and Glenys Wright, received community detention, allowing them to live at home under a curfew. They and their co-offenders, all aunts of Janet Moses, also sentenced to community service, supervision and to undertake cultural education programs.
This was a just response to a tragic death. The jury, by their verdicts, held the family members who killed Janet criminally responsible for her death, and it's a recognition of the sanctity of life.
Typical sentences for manslaughter are 4 to 6 years, but none of the justifications for sending people to prison seem to be present here. There was no deterrent value here. Punishment, well, what purpose would that serve? And I know a lot of people are very cynical of our system of justice, but as misguided as it appears to us in the cold, hard light of day, they genuinely believed that they were assisting her.
Aua hoki mātou e kawea ka whakawaia. E ngari whakaoringia mātou I te kino. No hoki te rangatiratanga, te kaha me te kroria. Ake.
Must have been another a week after. We'd have a meeting at the marae. And we all decided to knock the place down. Knock it down. Wow, it was sad to see that, man. It's bloody sad. Every morning you get up and I look straight out my window and see nothing. See nothing. Yes, bloody real sad news.
Sometimes you can go past those flats and you can still see a cloud that's above it. You don't do those things. You don't muck around with mouldy things.
I've heard that they still believe that the curse is alive in their family and it's passed on. It's understandable that they could believe that. Beliefs really are nothing more than conclusions that we have drawn on the basis of our experience. There is still the possibility that a Marketu did, in fact, attack Janet. Nobody knows. They could have been right all along.
There's no doubt in my mind she was possessed, either from a Māori or from a clinical worldview. She was unwell. And that curse, it's an attitude of the family continued to carry on with what they will hand on to the future generations is really in their hands. They have to deal with the fact that despite the best that they tried to do for her in that situation, she died.
I didn't know Janet. I knew Janet through the investigation. So you only ever know Janet through the eyes of other people, from what they tell you. But as a mother myself, it really resonated with me. We had 2 young children who, for the rest of their lives, don't have their mum. In fact, they were so small that the only memory they will ever have of their mother is memories that other people give them of her.
She was a wonderful mother. That's what I would tell them. How much she loved them and how much she cared about them.